Welcome to the Blue Mountain is now the time to reevaluate your EAM software webinar, brought to you by Blue Mountain Advanced Services, the partner program, and Valspec, a certified Blue Mountain partner. We will begin the webinar at about 2 minutes past the hour to allow registered attendees to log into the webinar. Today's webinar recording will be made available to all attendees. More details on how to access the recording will be provided at the end of the session. Welcome to the Blue Mountain is now the time to reevaluate your EAM software webinar. We want to encourage feedback, questions, and discussion around the topic. You can type a question and send it to us through the questions panel. There will be time at the end of the webinar for questions as well.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending where you are in the world. Welcome to the webinar once again. We'll start off with some introductions by the presenters who will be with you today. The first one is myself. My name is Dave Parrell. You see some of my credentials on the screen. I am in the Global Advanced Services team with Blue Mountain, covering any region around the world, but I am based in the UK, so the UK and Europe are my primary areas of responsibility. I have over 35 years of industry experience, all somewhere related to maintenance and reliability of production equipment. 19 of those years have been spent in the life sciences environment. Industries I've worked in are beer, pharmaceuticals, sugar, biofuels, and some time in consulting. In general, I consider myself to be a maintenance and reliability specialist. And now let's move on to Tracy, who we welcome from Perth, Australia.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Tracy Clemmer. I'm a senior consultant for Valspec. I'm a project manager. I'm a change practitioner with over 30 years of experience in life sciences, primarily with computer system validation, but more recently getting involved with process improvement and remediation projects for quality management systems. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. And Chris.
Good day, everyone. My name is Chris Tenza. Very similar to my prestigious colleague, Dave Porrell. We work together in what we call the Global Advanced Services Support here at Blue Mountain. We're bringing some of the industry best practices that we've acquired over the years to our customers and our clients, helping them get the most efficient use out of our software and equipment reliability. 33 years in industry experience, 23 of those in life sciences, industries with both food and life sciences, and very similar to Dave as well, roles in engineering and manufacturing, reliability, calibration, preventive maintenance, asset lifecycle, and been working with CMMS systems sometime since the mid-90s. Great to be here and look forward to joining the conversation.
Thank you, Chris. Just before we get into the meat of the presentation, as we said, the webinar is being brought to you by Blue Mountain and Valspec in partnership today. But I'd just like to give you a quick overview of the Blue Mountain system with a few thoughts about it for those of you who may not be familiar with the software. The name Blue Mountain applies to both the company and the software system we produce. Blue Mountain is a leading developer of asset management software and services for the life sciences industry. We focus specifically on life sciences and strive to ensure that our product is the system of choice for companies operating in this sector. So a few notes about the Blue Mountain RAM system. RAM stands for Regulatory Asset Manager. Launched in 2007, it was the first solution for life sciences to integrate functionality for calibration, maintenance, and asset management into one system. The latest release is hosted in the cloud and is designed for Industry 4.0. A key differentiator of Blue Mountain's solution is that it comes fully validated. In addition, Blue Mountain delivers solutions directly through a SaaS model, which enables ongoing validation to be provided alongside software updates as they are released. The validation package has withstood the scrutiny of the FDA in hundreds of customer audits over many years. To date, the RAM system has been implemented in well over 1,000 facilities worldwide and still growing. Blue Mountain RAM ensures the integrity of your data and compliance with the FDA's good manufacturing practices. We use a GAMP5 approach for qualification and validation of automated systems to ensure that the software solution remains scalable and compliant. We provide not only an extremely capable software solution, but we support this with a world-class customer experience and in-house support from our technical team. So this webinar is brought to you by our Global Advanced Services team. Together, we have extensive industry experience of maintenance, reliability, and EAM systems, which means we can help our customers leverage their features of Blue Mountain RAM, combined with industry best practice to optimize their asset management programs. So the agenda for today, we've been through the introduction. We'll have a look at a few thoughts about why to rethink and reevaluate our CMMS software. Then we'll move on to what to consider before making any change of this magnitude. Next section is an opportunity for wider improvements. We'll have a look at some thoughts on change enablement best practices, and we will have a question and answer session at the end. So as Chris said, please feel free to enter any questions or comments you may have in the chat as we proceed. So first section then, a few reasons to rethink and evaluate what we're doing in the area of computerized maintenance management systems. And so as per the title of our webinar, we ask the question, is now the right time to reevaluate your CMMS software? We know that much progress has been made in the development of CMMS software in recent years. Lots of software systems are out there on the market, as we know, and all of them are advancing continuously to try to keep up with industry trends. Software platforms now incorporate features that were previously unavailable, functionalities such as API for integration, charting capabilities within queries, including typical industry metrics as standard. a variety of tools for mass uploads of data, so it doesn't all have to be entered manually via the front end of the user interface, and various mobile applications. So what each one of us needs to ask is, does your current CMMS software have these options? And some of the others that we're going to talk about through the presentation. The next thing we need to do is to identify your CMMS business needs. And a few more questions to ask, really just trying to frame up the thought process here. Firstly, does your current system meet regulatory and compliance requirements? Many do, some don't. Particularly important in the life sciences industry. Do you believe your system will meet the anticipated future needs of your business? If you're running an older system, maybe not. Are you using more than one system to document your maintenance activities? If so, there's a huge amount of inefficiency with doing that. Is your current system intuitive and easy to navigate for everyone? Are you on internal servers requiring your IT team to maintain hardware upgrades, backups, and patch software? And finally, and possibly most important, are you at risk of losing vendor support for your system anytime soon? In the marketplace, we're constantly aware of the fact that new vendors are bringing new versions of their software into play. And correspondingly, some of the older versions are being sunset and put to sleep. Every user of a system needs to make sure that they are using a version or a platform of the software that is currently supported. If not, you could be at tremendous risk for your business in terms of the maintenance data and functionality that you have available. A few IT security risks associated with that. Firstly, unpatched vulnerabilities expose your business to security threats. And if you're on a version of your software which is not supported, you could be missing out on these security patches and updates, which if they're not routinely provided for operating systems and server software which has reached the end of its life, then you could be exposed to those risks. Now, it's possible you could go through extended support for that particular software version that you're running, but this always comes with additional cost. And there's likely to be a break-even point there beyond which it's not worth going. Secondly, downtime and potential data loss. Software that's running on legacy hardware and software may be prone to extended outages or data recovery issues in the event of a system failure. Obviously, if you're running more modern software that's currently supported, those risks are lower. Thirdly, we see obsolete security technology. A lack of security patches and regular updates may leave the systems vulnerable to newly discovered exploits. And these exploits are coming all the time. Every day we hear about new vulnerabilities coming into the market. And lastly, risks from unsupported marketplace apps. So updates to connected applications may break current integrations, resulting in additional work or loss of connectivity. So some very good reasons why we need to make sure that we're staying current with the version of the software and indeed the platform that we're running to avoid some of these security risks. Next section we'll move on to is having a look at what to consider before making a change. The implementation of any upgraded computer system is a change and needs to be treated as a formal change management activity. And we will hear some more thoughts about that from Tracy later on. But just some of the things that we need to consider before diving into it. And at this point, I would like to run a quick poll, please. I think one of my co-presenters is going to put the poll question onto the screen. And we'd ask everybody to submit your answers there, please, in response to the poll. The question is how satisfied are you with the current CMMS software system that you're running? And maybe you don't even have a system. There's an option there in the responses for that too. Okay, so I think it's going to be Jenny who is monitoring those responses for us. Jenny, what's it looking like? We can't hear Jenny. Maybe Jenny's offline. Chris, do you have the responses to the poll?
Yes, Dave. So I'm seeing it on screen. Hopefully everybody else is as well. What we're seeing is 60% answered no, and 40% answered we do not currently use a CMMS.
Oh, wow. Okay. Great. Thank you, Chris. So, the short answer there is nobody is completely happy with the CMMS options that you're running at the moment. Okay, well, that's very interesting. So as we look forwards to the option of making a change, either upgrading or replacing your current system, or indeed implementing a system if you're one of those that does not have a system, some of the user requirements that you should really consider. We give a couple of these on the screen. Leadership frequently pushes a direction on what CMMS platform is deployed within an organization. That's something that we see very commonly, very often. But what about the people using the tool? Have you, as the team, invited the opinions and considerations of those people who will be the primary users of the software? It's important that we understand what the users are hoping to achieve in terms of functionality, ease of use, navigation, and user-friendliness of the system. So it's an interesting question. If we would ask the users in that user population to redraft the URS for the software system that they want to use, would it today include different or additional requirements from what you have in the system at the moment? Usually the answer is yes. That's not surprising. That comes with greater experience and knowledge, having used the system for a time, as well as considering some of those older technology features that we talked about previously and the introduction of new features. So how about asking your users these few questions? Firstly, will the current solution meet their needs? That's the solution that you've got at the moment. Does it include the full scope of functionality that's required, both today and looking forwards into the future? Thirdly, is it easy to navigate and to complete all the tasks for those users on a day-to-day basis? Again, older technology very often is no longer as fluent or easy to use as some of the newer products that we get today. And finally, is the system, the CMMS that you have, fit for purpose? We need to be sure that we're always using the right tool for the job. Older technology may no longer be valid or applicable and appropriate for what we're wanting to use, like the poor fellow that we see in the graphic on screen. The next question we need to consider is, what problem are we trying to solve by wanting to change to a new system? So firstly, we consider the challenges that you're experiencing with your current system and ask, what would you want to do? What would you want to address in a different way? Maybe those challenges are around functionality. Maybe they're around execution speed. Maybe they're around stability. Maybe they're around threats or some of those risks that we spoke of a few slides back. Pay close attention to the system's features as you're trying to answer this question. You need to look at functionality that is included in the software you're considering, and importantly, functionality that is missing. There's little point in changing to something that's different if it is not going to answer all your questions and provide all the functionality that you really need. Then we need to ask ourselves, those features that we're looking for, are those features a business need, or are they a want, or are they just a nice to have? Sure, we'd all like to have those fancy features, but we need to consider what will add value to the business. Ultimately, that's what we're here for, to run the business to make a profit. And we need to be sure that we're making the right decisions to solve the right problems so that we can ensure the longevity of the business and make sure that we continue to make a profit. Longevity is the long-term view. We need to make sure that as our business grows, we have a system that is able to grow with the business. Nothing stays stationary, and we need to make sure that we have a system capable of growing with us. So a few more questions here. Is the vendor of the system that you're considering also the system designer and developer? We frequently see systems that have been designed and developed by a certain group or a certain organization, but then the vendor parties who supply, install, sell, and market those software solutions are different. It is rare these days to find a vendor that is also the system designer and developer. In Blue Mountain, we're proud of the fact that we are one of those. You need to consider who provides system technical support. Again, if you've got a different vendor from the designer, is it the system designers who are providing the technical support for you on an ongoing basis, or are you getting that technical support through a third-party vendor? Not that there's anything wrong with a third-party vendor, but you need to consider and understand that to make sure that you're comfortable and happy with the way that structure and that support is set up. Remember, software is an investment in the solution and the people in the organization that created it. So we're all working in the life sciences industry. We have very particular and specific requirements concerning systems, data, functionality, and record keeping. So a question you need to consider is whether your current CMMS vendor focuses 100% on life sciences. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But a vendor that focuses on multiple sectors of industry across the market that is not dedicated to life sciences, well, you might find that sometimes there's a dilution of your interests, and you don't necessarily get the full scope of support and understanding from that vendor that you would hope for. Consider what are the expansion capabilities of the platform. Is it a one and done? Is it the sort of system that you're unlikely to see upgrades and enhancements? What about if your business grows and you introduce another site, you maybe build another facility or expand an existing facility? Is your software system capable of spreading its wings to embrace that growth and that expansion as well? Does the system support single site and multi-site applications? Any organization that is represented across multiple facilities and multiple countries around the world will know and understand the importance of being able to implement common practices, similar processes across different sites and the way that you use that system, and also the ability to combine data and run reports across different facilities, generating their own data and running their own products in their own time. So what type of support and training can the vendor provide? Will they provide technical training and support and user training and support? Again, some do, some don't. You need to be comfortable with what that offering is from the vendor. Then what about the system itself? The system you're considering, can it be personalized to align with your specific business requirements and processes. Sometimes the system requires hard coding, customization to be able to do things that might be slightly different from what they were originally thinking. Some systems already have that configuration capability available and can be personalized to meet your needs very much more easily. So how easy is it to make changes and add integrations to the software? These days, we're hearing a lot of talk and discussion about integrated systems, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and topics like that. The software you're considering, is it able to embrace that new environment of integrating with other systems? And does the vendor support the change and integration efforts? Again, some do, some don't. You need to consider that and make sure you're comfortable. We shift gear onto our next topic, where we have a look at an opportunity for wider improvements. Any change process opens that door and gives us the opportunity to think about whether there are other things, perhaps tangential to the core objective, that we can change and improve at the same time. So we'll look at a few of those here. Firstly, streamlining your workflows. Upgrading or migrating to an alternate solution is a great time to apply some of that continuous improvement and have a look at the workflows and the processes that you're using. Blow the dust off them, give them a bit of a shakeout, reconfigure them if necessary, and make sure that the processes you are using to run your business are as up-to-date as they can be, and importantly, aligned with functionality in your software that would be considered best practice. Hold a brainstorming session with your teams. Get everybody involved, everybody to share their ideas. You might need a facilitator to run some of those sessions. And streamline your current workflows into best practices. So, implement automated workflows based on business or asset criticality. Again, do those automated workflows come as standard features with the software that you're running? Or would that be an additional thing that needs to be built or managed outside of the system? Automated workflows offer a lot of advantages. You need to evaluate processes and workflows that you're running and eliminate and streamline any of the non-value add areas. Identify inconsistencies and develop a plan to scrub the data. It's a fantastic time. When you're moving data from your old system to your new system, you don't get a better opportunity than that to scrub and clean up that data as part of the transition. Create a process to ensure future data consistency. So once you've scrubbed the data, you've cleaned it up, you've cleaned up your processes, and you've moved across to your new system, you need to make sure that you've got processes in place that will ensure your consistency and the cleanliness of your data remains robust moving forwards. So you need to establish and document those suitable workflows and procedures for your business to support that. And all of that must be supported by a role-based training plan. And during the migration process, that's a fantastic time to develop that role-based training plan. Give the users the training that they need specific to their roles. A few thoughts about on-premise versus SaaS. SaaS meaning software as a service. It's becoming an increasingly popular option across many platforms right across industry. It's a quick and easy solution. It takes the burden off your internal IT team. With traditional systems where you're running servers and software manually locally on site, those need to be supported by local teams within the organization. And the IT team with a SaaS environment will no longer need to manage the systems internally. That includes hardware maintenance, upgrades, software patches and updates, any data backups which need to happen regularly, managing user licenses, all of the system validation and risk mitigation. All of those things can be alleviated or reduced or minimized tremendously using a SaaS solution. And you'll definitely recognize and see some notable savings on your internal costs as a result of all of the above. So that sounds like it's something worth doing, or at least considering. We move on to our next section here. We were going to have a look at change enablement best practices. And for this, I'm going to hand over to Tracy. So Tracy, it's all yours.
Thanks, Dave. So you've had a chance to evaluate your CMMS, and a decision's been made to make a change, whether it's an upgrade to an existing system, moving to a new platform, or based on the poll, maybe it's moving from a paper-based system to an electronic system. All of that requires a change, and what I'm hoping to do is to share with you some best practices that will help to ensure that your change initiative is successful. What I want to start with is the ProSci change triangle. This is a very simple but very powerful framework that basically depicts what critical aspects are necessary for successful change initiatives. So if we start at the top of the triangle, you'll see leadership and sponsorship. Our leaders guide us, our leaders give us direction, and throughout a change initiative, a change project, they are right beside us making decisions and taking actions. Ultimately, our leaders and sponsors are the ones that decide where we're going to go and how we're going to get there. In the bottom left of the triangle is project management. This is a discipline probably most of you are pretty familiar with. It's been around for decades. Project management is the technical side of a change initiative, and it's there to design, develop, and deliver the solution, or in this case, the system, to the organization. On the bottom right of the triangle, we see change management, and this is a discipline that's a little newer, so some of you may not be so familiar with it, but it is the people side of change, and it's there to help people become engaged, to adopt and to use the new system. And I'm getting a pop-up here telling me about.
Tracy, we've lost audio. Tracy, we've lost your audio.
We lost your audio.
That's what these messages are popping up. Am I back again?
Yes, you're back again. Sorry, we
Okay,
lost
there we
audio
go.
time that you said there was a pop-up.
So the center of our triangle is success. And if you imagine this triangle as being a three-legged stool, where leadership, sponsorship, project management, change management are the legs of that stool. If any of those legs are weak, if any of them are missing, if any of them are broken, you can imagine success sitting on top of that stool is just going to slide right off, which means our project isn't going to be so successful. Now, while we can celebrate success at the end of a project, it's really something that we need to think about at the beginning of a project. We need to define where it is that we're going to make sure that everyone that's involved in our change initiative is focused and getting towards that same goal. Next slide, please, Dave. Every change initiative has three states. We have the current state, which everybody's really comfortable in. Nobody wants to make a change. They're happy to stay where they are. It has a transition state, which is where a bit of anxiety and stress starts to happen because you know change is going to happen. And we have a future state, which is uncomfortable because it's unknown. It's not well understood what it's going to be. We think what it's going to be, but if we can work through those three states, we have a successful change project or change initiative. But it takes both project management and change management to get us to those successful outcomes. Now, the project management side of things has tools and processes, just the same as change management, to help the team move through each of those states of the change initiative. So again, familiarity with project management, you've probably heard of things like schedules, resource allocation, budgets, earn value. All of those are there in place to help design, develop, and to deliver that change initiative. Similarly, on the change management side of things, there are processes and tools that help us move people across to that success. Tools such as readiness assessments, communication plans, training plans, which is something that Dave mentioned previously, coaching plans, all there to ensure that we can engage people, we can help them adopt and help them to use that solution. And it goes without saying that depending upon the complexity of your project, the tools and the processes that you use should commensurate the same level of complexity. So we wouldn't have lots of different tools used if we're doing a simple upgrade, and maybe it's just a simple communications plan. But again, we need to look at the tools at what makes sense for the change initiative that we're working for. I'd like to spend a little bit of time speaking about communications and resistance management. Next slide, please, Dave. Resistance. So resistance is a natural response to any type of change, no matter how small it is. If you think about going to your favorite restaurant, and every time you go, you order the same thing on the menu, resistance is what's keeping you from trying something different, because you know what you've had before is the best thing, and there's that fear that if you try something new, it might not be as good as what it was before, and then you wouldn't be happy with your decision. So it's just natural. So as change practitioners, we are not trying to eliminate resistance. We can't. It's impossible. What we're trying to do is mitigate it. We're trying to manage it. And there's different ways in which we can do that. The first thing that we need to do is to anticipate that resistance is going to occur. If you've been doing paper-based systems for a long period of time and now you want to move to electronic, you're probably going to get a lot more resistance than just a simple upgrade. So you need to be prepared for it. And we start with that by sort of understanding what are reasons for resistance and where are they likely to occur within our organization. Some reasons for resistance is just lack of awareness of why a change is necessary. Why do we need to move to a new platform? Why do we need to upgrade from the system that we currently have? It could be that there's change overload or change saturation. I know that there's many organizations that are constantly going through a state of change, particularly when it comes to IT systems, and people are just tired of change, and that creates a level of resistance. There's fear, a fear of how that change is going to impact someone personally and perhaps within their job. I'm getting another sign here. Okay, it looks like we're all good. Organizational culture. There are definitely organizations that are very resistant to change. And so those are things that we need to think about and anticipate what is going to be the resistance for our change initiative. We can also use tools like employee feedback, focus groups, input from frontline managers, assessments, audits to really identify what are the areas of specific resistance for the initiative that we're planning to go and move forward. And again, some of that's that feedback that you heard from Dave about going out to the end users and listening to what their needs are. With that information, we can then start looking at how we can manage that resistance within the change initiative we're working on. And there's 3 different avenues. The first one is resistance prevention. Now, like I said, we can't eliminate it completely, but we can try to prevent it by using the things that we're anticipating. We can tailor our communications such that we can hopefully prevent people from not being aware of why a change is necessary. And change management and the practices and the tools are there to help mitigate that resistance. There's an avenue that's called proactive resistance management. And again, that's being aware of where the resistance is going to be or likely to occur and making sure that we've got the right messages in place, we've got the right tools in place to proactively mitigate that level of resistance. So we're prepared for it, and when it starts to sort of raise its head, we're ready to react. The third avenue is reactive resistance management, and this is the extreme. This is where we've tried every possible tactic, every type of communication tool, and there's still this persistent resistance. This is typically when we've got significant change that's happening within an organization. And there's some tactics that are available that we can put in place to try to help, again, to mitigate that and to bring it down into manageable levels and to bring people across and supportive of the change initiative that we're working with. Those are all things that we can put together in a resistance management plan or just to have in our back pocket as we move through our change initiative. Next slide, please, Dave. So I mentioned communications. Communications is probably one of the key tools that any change initiative needs to have in place regardless of the size and the complexity of the change. I mentioned just previously that it's one of the tools that we use to mitigate that resistance and how we communicate and what the messages are that we speak with. So this communication plan is a little bit different from the one that you might be familiar with from a project management perspective. So project managers have communication plans where they determine what they're going to communicate to their key stakeholders, whether it's in regard to the progress of the project overall. This is the people side of the communication. So it's probably no surprise that the first thing that we do is identify our audience. Who is going to be impacted by the change and to what level or what degree of impact? We need to take everyone into consideration, not just someone who's directly impacted, but even those that are going to be indirectly impacted. We need to look across all of locations. We need to look at organizational levels, employees, contractors, service providers. We think of anyone and everyone who could be impacted by that change. From there, then we can start to begin to design and determine what our content is going to be and how we're going to package it, how we're going to deliver it. Is it face-to-face communications? Is it through team meetings? Is it social media? Is it posters in the cafeteria? All of the above. And what's the frequency by which we send those messages? And who sends them? Research shows that that sender is very important. For most people, they want to hear information about things that are changing from their direct line supervisors or managers. They want to hear it face-to-face. So there's different ways in which we deliver, but face-to-face is probably one of the things that is most important when we're talking about change initiatives. Once we've got our design and our plan in place, we now can start developing our key messages and the timing around that. The key messages are going to be specific per audience. So it's not a single message that goes out to everyone. We need to think of the different audiences and what is the message that we need to provide to them in regards to this change initiative. And likewise with timing. The message is going to change depending upon where we are within the project. So messages will be unique to each phase or each step of the project. Finally, with our plan in place, we can now present it to our project team, our primary sponsor, and our critical stakeholders, and at the same time coach them about how to deliver this message. Ultimately, these are the people that are going to be communicating face-to-face to your audience. So coaching them on the best way to deliver this information, as well as how to manage the resistance that we're expecting, is only going to lead us in the direction of success. Next slide, please, Dave. So I want to spend the last couple of minutes looking at some lessons learned in communications. My hope is to reinforce how important communication is in any change initiative. If there's anything that you do or take away, it's putting together that communication plan. So if we look at the first one, more communication, this is what comes up very frequently in a lot of projects in terms of lessons learned. More people at all levels, increasing the relevancy of what is being communicated, and face-to-face. Again, face-to-face is so important when it comes to helping people through change. It helps to make sure that you're empathizing with them, you're there with them throughout that change effort. Number two, better communication strategy, using succinct, consistent, and accurate messages. The information that we see again from research shows that you're going to have to probably tell someone 5 to 7 times a message before it actually sticks in their head. And so having that consistent information is what's going to help them to retain what's actually happening and how it's going to happen for them. What's in it for me is often one of the things we talk about from a communications perspective, and making sure that they understand how they're going to benefit from this change. The third one is communicating earlier, connecting both with the sponsor to make sure you've got their input and their support, but also you can see the person-to-person meetings starting earlier, that whole face-to-face concept. The fourth one is more attention to senior leadership. This goes back to the top leg on that triangle of leadership and sponsorship, making sure that we've got support and ownership from senior leaders in what it is that we're trying to change and what we're trying to implement. And the last one is dedicated people for communication and subject matter experts. Now, as I said in my introduction, I'm a project manager and I'm a change practitioner. I am not a marketing person and I am not a graphic designer. So trying to put together communications is certainly not my forte. I'm happy to help and provide feedback, but if you want some of the best of your communications, find out someone within your organization who can help you, whether it's in your training department, your marketing department, or someone who just has a passion for putting together little jingles that might stick in someone's head, or putting together interesting graphics that help people stay engaged and talk about what that change initiative is. So as I wrap up my time with you, what I hope I've done is given you a better understanding of some of the critical aspects that need to be in place to ensure that your next change initiative is successful. And I hope I've inspired you to think about the people side of change, because it's just as equally important as the technical side. Dave, I'll send it over to you to conclude. Thanks very much for the time this evening.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Very enlightening and a joy to listen to. Very useful. So people, that just about wraps up the webinar for today. Just a few closing thoughts as we move towards time for question and answer. The one is, we told you right at the beginning that the webinar is being brought to you by Blue Mountain Global Advanced Services in partnership with Valspec. And we would like to draw your attention to the upcoming Blue Mountain Summit, at which Valspec will be present, obviously, as well as the Blue Mountain team, and a number of our other partners will also be present there. It is going to take place from the 15th to 17th of October in Durham, North Carolina. So if you're able to make it, it's a fantastic opportunity for networking, learning, teaching, gathering, finding out what's new in a relaxed setting. So we'd love to invite you if you're able to make it. And now I'll open the time up for any questions. I think Chris is going to moderate this for us. Chris, what have you got for us?
Certainly, Dave. Thank you, and thank you both. Great presentation. We did have a few questions that came in from our audience. I'll start with one. Where can I get help to review my current practices to determine whether I need to upgrade to a new CMMS?
I'll take that one. Thank you, Chris. Lovely question. And the answer is, well, there are a few different answers. Firstly, we in Blue Mountain pride ourselves that we have a team, which includes people like Chris and myself and a few others who can help you. We've brought a lot of industry experience with us to the organization, and certainly if Blue Mountain is one of the options that you're considering in terms of upgrading or implementing a new CMMS, we have that ability in-house and we can help you. There are other sources and other places that will also provide this kind of help. A number of consulting organizations and specialist companies on the market will be able to provide this, but I'll also very much draw your attention to the partners that we have with Blue Mountain. They're all listed on our Blue Mountain website, and a number of these partners have the ability to help and to review those practices and to identify what good practice looks like to help facilitate that change in advance of a new CMMS. Hopefully that helps. Thank you, Chris.
Certainly. Another that came in, Tracy spoke of resistant management. How can I convince my senior leadership that we need to change to a new CMMS? I hear this frequently. They always say it's not a priority and we don't have the budget, like they're the ones resisting change.
That does happen, you're right. Our senior leaders who we need supporting us are sometimes the first people that we need to get across the line and mitigate the risk. So a very interesting question. So the first thing I think is understanding you're not alone and you need to work with others around you, like your service providers and other consultants, to help you with communicating, I guess, at the level of your senior leadership. So speaking with them in the language that they know and that they understand. What is the risk if we don't change the system? What is the risk if we don't upgrade? What are the consequences? What is the return on investment? So from a monetary perspective. Spending some time listening to why they're resisting the change is also a tactic, particularly if you're getting a lot of resistance, is really try to understand from their side in terms of priorities. The unfortunate part, though, Chris, is that at the end of the day, as I said, the leaders are the ones that make the decisions. And so it may be something that needs to be tabled for this year and we go back and try again next year. That leadership support is necessary in order to make that initiative successful.
And Tracy, I think you really nailed it with, there's two, I'll say, phrases that stick in my head from a mentor of mine throughout the years of my life sciences industry. One is know your audience, and the other one is show me the money, right? Typically that's where leadership is focused. What's this going to cost me, or what kind of revenue is it going to bring in, right? So great advice. Thank you for that. And then I have one more that came in. Fairly lengthy. So I'm nervous about being totally dependent on an external company hosting my data in the cloud. What happens if something goes wrong and my data is lost? How can I be sure the system will be available at all times when I need it? They gave a handful of sub examples here. The servers are backed up,
Chris,
etc.
let me take that one, Chris.
Yeah, they're questioning, Dave, a lengthy amount of things. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think I can probably respond to that just from the from that first question statement. And it's not surprising. A lot of people would be nervous if they've not had any experience of using a SaaS platform. There are a few things that we can say to really mitigate that fear. With the industry and the IT world as it is at the moment, organizations that are offering a software as a service, such as a CMMS, which we're talking about, that organization has a responsibility, and they will back up their servers and all their databases at least daily, sometimes even more frequently than that. There are usually multiple servers in different locations. I was working with an organization just recently, and they had a set of servers in Ireland, and they had a complete exact copy of those same servers with the exact same data in real time located in South America. And that's not uncommon. I don't mean the South America piece. I mean the fact that a company will have multiple locations with complete duplicate servers. Usually the system availability is very, very high. Usually, certainly in the case of Blue Mountain and our servers, we're very proud of the fact that our system availability is more than 99%. Well, I mean, that's what it is. It's very, very high, very, very reliable systems. The host will normally provide warning of any planned outages. So, the likelihood that you're suddenly going to be taken by surprise and the system goes down unexpectedly is very, very low. Normally, the hosts are very responsible in that regard and will inform you of any known planned outages, such as for things like security patches. And the other thing that I would say to an organization is it's a very good idea to have a business continuity plan in place for each facility, just in case something happens. And I'm not only talking about a CMMS software package here, but if something happens to take away certain functionality and systems that you're using on a daily basis, it's a good idea to have that backup, that business continuity plan, which will define how you're going to continue to run the business and do all the necessary activities if that software system is out of action for a period of time. Very much a local site-specific thing to put in place, but a good idea. Hopefully that answers it. Chris?
Then, yeah, I just had one last question that came in. With a SaaS CMMS, do you still need an administrator on site, or will the host company take care of all that for you?
Interesting question. And it's a bit of both. I believe that you do still need a system administrator on site. That person will still need to take care of some of the high-level user features, things like setting up user accounts and passwords, things like if you need to set company-wide values in some of your pick lists to ensure continuity of processes, things like setting up master data, creating that data and updating it, performing that sort of high-level data maintenance. Those things do need to be done by the site team. You can't leave that in the hands of the vendor or the host. So you do still need a system administrator on site for that reason. However, anything to do with the IT side, when you're thinking about the actual hosting of the software, managing the servers, the hardware, anything to do with security and ensuring the security is there, looking after all the software patches and updates, all those kinds of things to do with the actual running and functionality of the software platform, that is all taken care of by the host, by their technical people in their organization. So it's a bit of both. Usually it works very well in that way, but you do still need to have an administrator on site. Thank you, Chris.
And then there was one last one I overlooked. So at our company, we need to interface our CMMS data with the finance and purchasing system for procurement of parts. Is this possible with a cloud-based system?
Yeah, I'll take that one as well. Interesting question, and the short answer is absolutely yes. We do it within our organization, where we are able to interface the Blue Mountain system with a variety of other software systems at customer sites. And we're not the only ones. There are a lot of other organizations and software providers who can do the same. So the short answer, yes, it's definitely possible, and indeed possible to interface with a variety of different other platforms. This integration can be done in a couple of ways. You can build a direct interface between the CMMS and the one other system, and we see that quite often with a system like a LIMS system, laboratory information, where there's a direct connection between the two, and also that procurement system that was in the question. The other way to do it is there's a lot of work and advancement being done at the moment to build things like a data hub, where you can have multiple systems connecting to that data hub, and it's through that hub that the information would actually be shared and communicated back to the different systems that are connected to it, a bit like the spokes on a wheel. Yeah, as I say, there's a lot of work happening at the moment where various vendors and software organizations are putting a lot of effort into building these data hubs and the ability to integrate information and data across multiple systems. So yes, definitely possible with a cloud environment as well. Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. Thank you for the responses and all the questions. That is the last question, and we'll conclude our webinar for today. I want to thank everybody for their participation and look forward to seeing the webinar on, as I shared in the chat, it'll be made available through the Blue Mountain Help Center in the near future.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Thanks everybody for joining. And until next time, for today, bye-bye.